Wow, here we are, raw and real with the one and only Tom Erb. What's up, buddy?
Not much.
Finally get a chance to sit down one-on-one and talk about the real Tom Erb.
Okay, I'm
Ready, man? You ready to just fire into it, buddy?
I'm ready.
We need a beer out of chat, but that's okay. We have no beverage right now, but we're still going to have the chat.
We'll get them later.
So, Tom, I got to ask you straight up, man. You know, a lot of people, they know you of this high-energy speaker and all this stuff, but there's a behind the scenes that I kind of know because I spent a lot of time with you.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about music first because I got to tell you, when I first met you, I did not think you liked this kind of music. I mean, I classified you as a guy that just likes maybe top 40.
Easy listening.
Easy listening, little Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
But totally different. So tell everybody out there, what do you like?
So I'll say the same thing everybody says. I like all sorts of music, but what you're talking about is I do like heavy metal music. So Tool, yeah, Mastodon. So a lot of heavy bands. I actually like
Tool's pretty cool though.
Tool's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to see Tool here in a couple of months at the Sonic Temple Festival, and so I'm excited about that. So
I love that. And then we may as well just roll with this too. Van Halen, you know, Van Halen. We both like Van Halen. Come on, Tom.
Where you're going with this?
I know where I'm going
yes,
with this.
I love the real Van Halen with David Lee Roth. Yes, love it.
Oh, hurt my heart. Sammy Hagar all the way, Tom.
Yeah, that sums us up.
Can I just say that he had more hits than David Lee?
Yeah, that's pop. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that end. But that was a good conversation. I mean, we both agree that Eddie Van Halen's one of the best. I mean, we'll agree on that. But
yeah, Eddie Van Halen's awesome. So I love Van Halen.
That's it.
Yeah.
So your music, when did you start liking this heavy metal stuff? I mean, was it like from birth? I mean, seriously?
No. So my dad was actually a DJ, and he. So I learned to. I grew up with music. I don't play any instruments. My son does, but I don't. But I've always been into music, and my parents were more into that, rock music. It maybe kind of on the lighter side in the '70s and early '80s, and then in probably early '80s there was Van Halen, 1984. Got into Ozzy. Then I started getting into Metallica and Judas Priest. I was big into Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and just all those
little Slayer too.
I've actually gotten more back into Slayer and Pantera and some of those now. You have to realize that back in the '80s, if you remember, I mean, you couldn't stream. It was like you were committed. You were buying an album or a cassette. And so you had to kind of commit to it. So my picks were, Metallica and Megadeth and Judas Priest and all those different ones. Dio, I like Dio.
Nice. So I pictured you like 12 years old watching Headbangers Ball, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I had the mullet, and I had
the mullet. Okay,
yeah,
so Tom Erb mullet. When are we going to see that picture, man? Is there one out there somewhere?
Oh yeah, I've got it in the members only. My members only jacket. So yeah.
So I challenge you this year. I think that should be your LinkedIn profile for a week.
It could be. I would. I've got a great picture of that. Yes, full mullet. Yeah.
And growing up, you grew up in West Virginia, of course.
Yeah.
Where I'm living at now.
Right.
Big Mountaineer fan. So how did you end up in Ohio, in Columbus?
I did. I grew up in West Virginia most of my life. I was born in Ohio, but my family's from West Virginia and Marietta, Ohio. So I grew up there, went to elementary school and high school there, graduated. Went to West Virginia University for undergrad. I did that for 4 years. I used the economy as an excuse, and I just said, all right, I'm going to stay in college. And I got my master's degree while I was there. And then, when in West Virginia, at that time at least, it's changed a little bit, but at that time you either went east, west, south, or north. You went to Pittsburgh, Columbus, Charlotte, or DC, and I ended up in Columbus.
And that's when you deep dived into the staffing career, right?
Yeah, I got an interview for Olston, and I drove up to Columbus to do the interview, and they didn't pick me. And
okay, so time out. Tom Erb did not get picked the first time.
No, I didn't. No, there's a little story there, but he didn't pick me. And so about 2 weeks later, I get called by the HR person again, and they said, we got another position we'd like to interview you for. So I went and interviewed, and I got that job. And then I ended up working for the guy who didn't hire me the first time. And he said, you know what, I thought you were good, but the position and the office that you would have been in, he goes, you would have lasted 2 months. And so I actually thanked him for that, because I probably would have lasted 2 months and then gone and done something different rather than being in the industry for 30 plus years. So
when you started out, I'm sure, were you a sourcer, recruiter, or sales?
I was an interviewer.
Oh.
I was an interviewer in a light industrial office, and that's how I learned. And then I quickly moved into more recruiting, did recruiting for a while. Then I moved into client service, did that for a while. And then my largest client that I was servicing exploded, and I ended up becoming the on-site there. And that was the first on-site that they had in Columbus ever. And so I did that. So I just kind of rose through the ranks. I did a little bit of everything.
So how did you get into like keynote speaking and a little bit of podcasting and the consulting part with, I believe, your wife, right?
Yeah.
She's part of the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how in the hell did you go from that to this, where you're at right now?
So I spent 16 years with 2 staffing companies. It was 6 years with Olston, and then and that was a franchise. So that was an interesting kind of experience, and I learned a ton there. And then I moved to Spherion, and I spent 10 years there. I started out as a sales rep, and actually selling large accounts, like $1 million plus accounts, which was a lot back then. Still a lot, but it was a lot more back then. And grew up through the ranks there again, ended up as a regional VP for the last couple of years. I was a sales director for several years, loved that job, built up the Northeast region. And then I just got to the point where I was just kind of tired of working for a large company. And I didn't know why I didn't like it, but I just knew that it wasn't fulfilling. And so I had quite a few friends that were entrepreneurs. I had some friends that were speakers, because I was involved in some different organizations. And so I knew a lot of speakers because of the conferences that we put on. And I started just picking their brains. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So in 2010, I left a secure job where I was doing really well. And my wife was fantastic to support me on that. And so I gave my notice, worked out 5 weeks, actually helped find my replacement, and then walked down that Monday morning to my office in my house and had no clients, and just sat there and go, okay, now what am I going to do?
Okay, so at that point, how much did you have like fear? I mean, at the end of the day, anxiety. You're like, okay, now I got to do this or what?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, Tom.
So it's funny. I always felt like I knew what I wanted to do, and like with anything, I did a lot of research into it. I was buying books. I read multiple books on consulting, and I created an entire business plan, and I had everything lined up. And I did that in the evenings and weekends while I was still working, and when I knew I was going to make the change. And I talked to as many people who had already made the leap before me. So I felt really good that it was the right decision. My wife had a good job as an HR director, and so we were okay. We were taking a big hit, but we were okay for a while. And it was funny. I just felt really good and confident about it, except for one night when I woke up in the middle of the night and it was like, holy crap, what if this thing doesn't work? And that passed. And then I just got to work, and just build it up. And I had a really crappy first year trying to build it up, but also trying to be respectful of my non-compete. I didn't want to irritate anybody there that felt that I was violating the non-compete. So I took it a little bit slower than I would have if I didn't have that non-compete. But by year 2, then things were going. So
okay, so the transition from the office to home back in 2010. I mean, that wasn't like remote back then, and we didn't have it like we did now. So what was the feeling like working from home?
It was okay, because I oversaw 35 offices, and one of my peers, because I was talking to them about, I had started doing some work working from home, and I was feeling a little bit of guilt working from home, because that wasn't a common thing in 2008, 2009. And one of my peers said to me, she goes, how many offices do you oversee? And I said, 35. And she goes, how many of those are you in any given day? I said, one, maybe two. And she goes, you're working remote already. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're working in one office or working at home. So I started to split some time at home, and I had a full setup. I had an office. I wasn't just sitting at my kitchen table or whatever. And so it was actually a pretty smooth transition. And I've always been pretty focused at home. The one thing I've just learned is if I shut my door, it shuts off the rest of the house. And so any temptation to kind of do other stuff or get distracted just goes away when I shut the door. Even if nobody's at home, I shut the door. And just because it just mentally, it allows me to be focused.
Well, where are you at now? I mean, you're speaking across the circuit on all these different conferences and stuff like that. What high do you get like when you're on the stage? Because, we all get a rush.
Yeah.
Tell me about it, man.
It's, I do. It's one of those things where I enjoy it. What I really enjoy is after you've spoken for a while, you can read the audience better, right? Starting off, you're not sure, and I know I used to always focus my time on the people that were on their phone. Well, I realized pretty early on, some of them are taking notes. Some of them are live tweeting while you're speaking. So you can't take that people aren't interested. But it's really looking at the heads nodding and the people writing stuff down and taking pictures of the screen. That's what I like because I know that it's resonating. And then to be done with it and having people come up and talk to you about it and give you the feedback. I just like the whole thing. What I always have tried to do is fill my sessions as much as possible with information they can really apply as quickly as possible. I'm all for motivational speaking and all that stuff. And there's some things that I do that are a little more conceptual about mindset and stuff. But my focus is how do I help people get better at their job and be able to go and apply that the next day they're back at the office.
Well, you do a hell of a job. I got to tell you that. Seriously, I will say that. And coming from me, that's the truth. You know that because, we like to joke all the time. Right. Seriously, and for you to be called back over and over again, you're making an impact. Yeah. Is there a time that you go to bed or you're at your house and you pinch yourself and says, I can't believe I did this all. Like I got to almost like a peak of the staffing industry. I'm an industry leader now. I'm a thought leader. I do this and that. Is there a time where you're like, wow, I remember when I first started out and now it's like you just pinch yourself and say, I can't believe I made it like this far?
No, and I probably should a little bit more than I do.
Well, it's being very humble then,
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's where it's a little weird is when people introduce me like today at the Staffing Sales Summit. Dan gave me a very nice introduction, said some nice things about how I've impacted his life, and I didn't even know some of those things. And so that's pretty cool. And so then I look at it and go, okay, how did I get here? It goes quick, right? I mean, it's like you remember the days when you were, just trying to get through the day. And I was trying to get through the day so that I could go and play softball and drink beer. So it does go quick. I do try and take time to appreciate kind of where I'm at and fortunate to be doing something that I love doing. I also think that in the last couple of years, I think my focus has really shifted a lot more from trying to build a business and really just grow that business to more of really try and help as many people as possible. And not that I wasn't doing that in the beginning, but you're also trying to survive too. I mean, you know what it's like. It's you're trying to get to a point where you can have some financial security, and then and you never feel really content. You say get at your peak. I don't feel there is a peak. There's never a peak.
Smart answer.
Right?
Smart answer. Yeah, seriously. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up with this. Tom's a beer connoisseur, by the way. You are, because you've taught me a lot of things about beer, and he makes fun of the beer I drink, but we won't talk about that, of course. Yeah. Okay, so what is your favorite beer? I know you like IPAs hanging around you, but is there one fan favorite for 2026 that you like?
Yeah, so right now my favorite beer is by a company called Distill, Destihl brewery out of Normal, Illinois. I've never been there. Would like to go to it, but and it's called Haze of the Dead, and it's a New England hazy IPA, and it's fantastic.
So what, 1 or 2, and then you're feeling pretty good? Is that how it is?
Well, yeah, they come in the 16-ounce cans, so they're just a little bit bigger, and so you got to be a little careful.
I'll just stick with my land sharks. How about that?
Yeah, you do that.
All right, Tommy. Hey, thank you for coming on, man. Raw and Real with
Thanks
Tom
for
Erb.
having me.
Talk to you soon, guys. That's a wrap.